Okay, I'm Jay Scruggs. I'm here with Kelly Knight, and Kelly and I are going to be working. Actually, Kelly will be working on, and I will just be watching and
moderating,
explaining some things. So Kelly's going to be doing demonstrations at the Tacoma show here coming up in, when is it?
April.
April. So tell us a little bit about what you're going to be doing in Tacoma, so the people want to come out and see you.
I'm going to be doing a runway seminar.
Okay.
On how to pick your design, how I come up with my ideas for my designs, how to incorporate it and put it on the dog, and where I get my attire.
Wow. Okay, so there's a lot involved in Runway that we didn't know about. If you don't know, or you haven't seen Kelly on the cover of Groomer or Groomer magazine or been at any of the shows, she's pretty much the queen of Runway. So I know she's won a lot of awards. So if you're interested in that, maybe you're a competitor, but you're not really, up to the level where you want to go and compete in the big classes. This is a fun class to do.
Very
Something
fun.
Very relaxing. You get to do it beforehand, correct?
Yeah, it's pre-groomed.
Okay, so pre-groomed, and then Kelly can advise you. She's almost like your personal assistant of the Runway. She can tell you what to wear, what not to wear,
right?
What looks good with
right.
What looks good with this design,
right?
So on and
yes.
so forth.
Yeah.
Right?
How to pick your what to wear with what design. Yes.
So we have a little miniature poodle here, and a lot of it it's been groomed or somewhat groomed. And what Kelly's going to do using a blending shear, or some of them call it a blending shear, some of them call them chunkers, but basically what it is, it has the long blade, and then the opposite blade has the teeth on it, but the end of the teeth actually have a serration or a blade on the end of them, so it's not like a regular thinning shear. So she's going to show you on a coat like this that's a little bit coarse and has some softness to it as well, how to, instead of using a scissor, get a good finish using blenders. So let's say this dog was already scissored and we wanted to go back and put a finish on it. Kelly's going to show us what to do.
Okay. So I'm just going to start where I see things that are out of place and try to neaten it all up.
So Kelly, are you using the same technique you would as a scissor, or because I know some thinning shears you need to come in and out of the coat, but with this particular shear, you use it just like as you're using a regular scissor, a straight or a curve?
Yes.
As far as the motion and everything?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't do the bouncing and
Gotcha.
all.
And what exactly would you call, how would you explain what this is doing to the coat? Is it thinning it out? Is it just smoothing it off?
No, it's giving it a crisper finish.
Okay.
Is that
just more plush? Like when I look at it, especially looking at it up close, as opposed to what was scissored compared to what she has done with the blending shear, it just looks a lot more polished to me.
Yes, it gives it a more finished look, I guess. Okay. Yes, like you said.
Gotcha. So Kelly does a lot of competitions now. She was actually in the poodle class here, but didn't make the entry or didn't get in time or whatever it was. So we had some extra time, so we wanted to take advantage of it and pull her aside. And in the competition ring, let's say you were just doing a solid black poodle, Kelly, that had a good coat. Would you still use this technique, or would you do it all with scissors?
I would do a majority of it with the scissors, and depending on probably the leg hair, then I would probably go back and
with it.
Yeah.
So let's pretend. So if you'll come around here and show, let's pretend this dog just didn't have a lot of volume to the leg, and maybe it had some sparse hairs. If you go over it and use this technique with the blending shear, you can actually build some volume up. And especially where we get, like if you were to run a scissor on it and scissor the coat, a lot of times it flattens out and looks a lot more narrow than it should. You can use this technique with a blending shear and actually add volume to it, because you're just taking the edges off, so you're actually building that coat out. So do you have any secrets of getting a smooth finish, just in general?
Practice.
Practice, yeah.
Practice.
Okay.
That's the best. Advice.
Good. I got you. So you can see, it doesn't take a lot of time with what she's doing. It's very minimal, but the difference that it makes, just, you know, if you have 10, 15 minutes to spare during a competition, or even at home in your grooming shop, and you get these dogs with these real wimpy coats that tend to want to, you know, they move around a lot, and every time you comb them, they move, or every time you put a scissor in them, they make a mark. This is a great example of what you can use and a great option to get a good finish. And it's sort of like an eraser, because you can see, like through here where we had a lot of those dents or indentations from the scissors, where the scissors came through, this blending shear actually erases that. So you can see it starts to look really nice and plush. And it also looks like it's giving a lot of softness to the coat too as well, as opposed to the roughness it had before. So Kelly, would you do the whole dog once you're finished? Once you get a finish on it with the scissor, would you go back and do everything with the blending shear if you have time?
I do try. I try to get around it at least once with these after I've finished the dog, but that doesn't always quite work out.
Right. So let's say you were in a competition and you had maybe 15 minutes to spare. What would be the key focal points that you would work on? You know, you had 15 minutes to use this blending shear. Would you do it with the body? Would you use it on the head? Would you do it on the legs? What would be the most important part in 15 minutes?
Probably the head, the neck, and the legs would be the most important, I would think, with the blending, because the body's so short usually that it doesn't need usually a whole lot of plushing up. So, but the legs and the you can almost always comb something out in the neck and the head, the legs.
Okay. And also, when Kelly's scissoring, if you watch her, when like maybe scissor in this area here, so she probably, on the first go around, she would probably use a curved shear just because we're putting a bevel shape or a curved shape in. But if you'll notice, when she uses her blender, she's still using that same angle as she goes through the dog's coat. As she goes from top to bottom, she's got her hand at an angle, and she still makes that nice bevel shape, even though she's using a straight bladed blender. So you can see that softness. You still get that nice spring of rib and the roundness that we're looking for to the coat. Now, could you use this, or tell me what exactly, besides a scissor coat, would you use these on? Do you have any terriers or terrier legs or heads or anything like that you'd use the same technique on?
I had a wire fox terrier that I groomed that I would use on her legs after I did her body.
All right. And if you're using the blenders, is there any rhyme or reason to go, I mean, can you go on, like a poodle coat, I know you can go any way because of the way the coat stands up, but let's say you were doing a terrier coat or something that grew more towards the ground, or like a Shih Tzu or Lhasa, is there a certain technique you would use as opposed to just going any way that you would on a poodle?
We'd still comb it up.
Still coming up?
And then go around the leg because you want the column. So I would think you could still, you still,
the same angle.
I mean, I don't. So I'm having to think. Yeah, I would. Yeah, because it's more forgiving than scissors. So
it's not like
you
a
can.
Scissor. If you cross cut something like on a Shih Tzu or something like that, you cross cut it, it's going to make a big indentation.
Right.
Whereas with these, they're, like she said, more forgiving. So it's a lot more subtle. So same thing she did on the body, where she comes into this bevel. On a poodle top knot, we want it to be beveled. We don't want it to be straight up and down. So it's always a good idea, whether you're using your curves, straights, or whatever you're comfortable with. In this case, she's using the blenders, but she's got them out at almost a 45-degree angle, so they're angled out away from the head. They're not angled straight up. If you angle them straight up, what's going to happen is you're going to get a real narrow head, and it's going to look more like a mohawk. So if you'll notice, the angle of her blade is always out away from the dog. So that's one of the things, especially when you're learning to groom, you need to make sure you're aware of the angles of the blade instead of just using the blade itself, thinking if I cut it straight and it has a bevel on it, it's still going to be beveled out like a top knot should be. So, Kelly, going back to competing, what are some tips you could give first-time competitors if someone's looking to compete, or maybe thinks they may want to do it but are kind of on the fence? What are some tips or advice you can give them?
Find someone that you know, or that, like myself, I've would be happy to help someone that had questions and let them mentor you and answer any questions that you might have. Don't be scared to ask us, because we've all been there and done it. So we know what the scarinesses of it are. So, I mean, it's a learning process for everybody. So
if you don't ask, you'll never know. And a lot of people think, I can go in and think I'm a really good groomer and I know what I'm doing, but you really need to ask those questions and find someone to work with, like Kelly said, to kind of help guide you, especially someone who's been doing it a long time or has already been successful in the competition ring. That always helps a great deal.
Yeah, and I've not met anyone in this profession that has not been just super helpful.
Right.
And whether they know you or not, they're usually bend over backwards to answer any questions and try to help if they can.
All right, so just a quick demonstration. Come visit Kelly in Tacoma. See her. She's doing a creative grooming, a runway seminar and a product seminar as well. What's going to be in the product seminar?
Product seminar is going to be kind of about what we use in the... Okay. One of my first problems when I started competing was I saw all these products and I didn't know what they were used for. So finding out trial and error and asking and everything else, I've kind of found out what different things are used for. Right. So that's what my class is for, is to teach people what I didn't know, and I'm sure other people don't know it as well.
So, for instance, if you're looking at the competition ring today, you see all these different products on the table, and you're like, what's that? What's that? What it's used for? And so you're going to explain all that.
Yeah, because I've had people even today ask me, what do you use a scissor spray for? So just things like that.
Okay, so good deal. All right, thanks everybody for watching. Kelly and I, Jay Scruggs, and our little chocolate poodle, brown poodle.
Chocolate.
So chocolate brown.
You're in trouble.
I know, right?
I can never find what I'm looking for.
The Northwest Grooming Show.
What?
I never know what to do with this breed.
The Northwest Grooming Show.